Hello, everyone, and welcome into the Apples and Ginos Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the podcast you come to when you're ready to take fantasy hockey seriously. I'm your host, Blake Creamer, and today we're diving into the best buy low opportunities in fantasy hockey, players whose production isn't lining up with the underlying metrics. I'm going to walk you through who's due to bounce back, why the numbers support it, and how you can take advantage before your league mates catch on. Okay, let's get you ahead of the curve. It's time to buy low and win those future weeks. Let's get to biz. Oh, yeah. Welcome in, everybody. Thank you so much again for joining us here on the Apples and Ginos Fantasy Hockey Podcast. We're having a great time this season. It's been a lot of fun, and this is a fun time of year, too, for me because, you know, everybody's getting their Spotify Wrapped stuff there, and we get to see, you know, some of our fans and some of the numbers, the sheer craziness and numbers that you guys are listening to our podcast, and that just makes us feel really good. That spurs us on even more and makes us want to create more content for you fiends. So you know, just on that note, I want to thank you all so much for your support here at Apples and Ginos. We do this because we love fantasy hockey and we love getting everybody those chips, and your victories equal our victories. It sounds cliche, and it is, but it's also true. And that's why we do what we do. So thank you so much for your service. Really appreciate that. But hi, I am your host, Blake Creamer. As I mentioned, please give me a follow over on X/Twitter/Blue Sky at Blake Creamer AG. Also check out the Apples and Ginos Discord. Link is in the description. We got 2,000 plus fantasy hockey managers in there talking all the time. I love it in there. Also, Apples and Ginos has a YouTube. Check us out there. Search Apples and Ginos. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe, all that stuff. It really helps us out. But we're going to create the content anyway, folks. Who are we kidding? All right. We're obsessed. And that's fine. But before we get into the names here today, I am excited to get into this show. We did a buy low show a month ago, I think, and it went really well. So I wanted to get back into it. I'm going to do a sell high show here too, maybe next week, because I like this kind of stuff. I like looking at trade values. We do have the trade talk boys, and they're kind of covering that. So I don't want to step on their toes, but I just love valuing players and seeing where, players are being undervalued and overvalued. And I like sharing that with you guys. So anyways, I'm going to try and keep this one quick here today. I got 5 players for you. But before we get into that, here's what we're looking at. Digging in underneath the surface like we do here to find these guys whose production isn't matching their process, right? And I'm talking about things like individual expected goals, power play involvement, underlying scoring metrics that actually predict future success. We talk about all the time, things like shots on goal per 60, scoring chances, individual expected goals per 60, all that stuff. And when those numbers are strong, but the points aren't there yet, that's where we got to strike, right? That's where we got to get the biz. And like I said, I've got 5 high-end players, I think, who are creating offense, driving play, and are due for serious corrections in the box score, okay? Which means now's the time to buy low. So let's get in there. Let's talk about these players, shall we? Let's do it. All right. Yeah. All right. Let's do it. We got the first one I want to talk about, Mathew Barzal of the New York Islanders. And this is a guy I was very high on going into the season here. I think that, Barzal has not had the season that many expected here, and that's fine, right? I think the Islanders are still kind of an interesting team where we're all trying to figure out what's going on there with Patrick Waugh and his coaching style and what type of team they truly are. But I don't know. I feel like we had a really healthy projection for this guy around point per game. So we're definitely off base to start the year. On the year here, Barzal does have 18 points in 26 games. That's before tonight's game. So I should mention that I prepped this show before Thursday night's games. And we got a little bit of production here from Matt Barzal. He got a 3-point night. So that doesn't mean the buy low window is closed, but I think it'll start to make sense with some of the things that I'm talking about here with this player and why I'm still excited about him. On the year, 18 points, 26 games before tonight's games, and that's a 57-point pace. Is this the guy I've touted as an elite play driver all these years? And I think Can he find his past form? You bet your sweet Bippy he can. I really believe that. I'm still heavily into this player. I think there's a few signs that production is going to start coming, and also just some positive regressions to start to head Barzal's way as well. So let's dig in on what he's been able to do here this season under the hood. So first off, individual chance and shot metrics for Matt Barzal. It's never going to be a strong suit for him, right? He's not a big shooter. He's not a goal scorer. He's firmly in the facilitator / distributor category of fantasy assets, right? So we can't and shouldn't expect a goal scoring spree at any point from Matt Barzal, right? He's already shooting 10.8% at all strengths. Again, and this was before tonight's game. And that's the 4th highest shooting percentage of his career. So in fact, I think it should be a little bit higher, right? He's been really efficient at 5-on-5, but his power play numbers have been dismal. He has yet to score a goal there with the man advantage. And we're 26 games in, folks. That's rough stuff. That's showing no good. But I'm going to talk a bit more about the Isles power play in a second. But I want to get back to some positive signs for Matt Barzal. Time on ice, first thing, it's off the charts, right? He's playing a career high 21-14 with over 4 minutes on the power play. That's excellent, right? That's a great start for an offensive player like this. That's the exact place you want him to be, right? He's been playing recently with Jonathan Drouin, Anders Lee, which on paper should be a decent line. I mean, Drouin was out tonight with an injury, so Maxim Siplikov jumped up on that line, and they did have some success as well. 56% Corsi 4 percentage for that line here tonight. Not too shabby. So yeah, I like that, but Jonathan Drouin is the usual wing on that line there. You do have, like, I always like to look at the way lines are constructed. You know this if you listen to the pod, and this line should be pretty good, right? Drouin, Lee, and Barzal. You got zone entries and defensive support with Matt Barzal. Drouin is the shifty distributor, and Anders Lee is kind of the hammer, right? He's the board battle net front guy who's going to be at the end of a lot of passes. And yeah, I know that it would obviously be better if Matt Barzal maybe played on the wing with Bo Horvat as center, right? But they need they need to kind of disperse some of the talent there in the top 6, and that makes a lot of sense with the Islanders, the way their roster is currently constructed. But yeah, no access to Horvat. It's not a deal breaker here. In fact, I think that this trio of Drouin, Anders Lee, and Matt Barzal have been extremely unlucky. Something that immediately jumps off the page with Matt Barzal. Over the last 2 weeks here, he's number 1 in the entire league in on-ice expected goals per 60. And that's a metric that I look at with Mark Barber, 18 skaters, expected goals model. And on-ice expected goals per 60 in particular is expected goals when the player is on the ice, excluding his own expected goals. So basically, it's a metric that talks about the offense generated when he's on the ice by his line mates in particular, not him, right? And he's first overall in the entire league. So to me, that says he's generating a lot of offense. He's driving a lot of play. And it indicates the quality of chances that they're generating are elite as well. But they've been extremely unlucky. You look at Anders Lee, he's had 1 goal in his past 5 games. Jonathan Drouin, 1 assist. Barzal has 1 goal before tonight. This line is due, and it's as simple as that. I mean, Matt Barzal, but in a nice little game here that he played on Thursday. The guy did get 1 goal, 2 assists. Again, 20 minutes, 40 seconds. Great stuff. He got his first power play goal on the season, so that's good to see. I'm just seeing that now. So I did mention he didn't have a power play goal, but he does now, and that's excellent. But yeah, at 5-on-5, Barzal is performing at a reasonable level. There's no question. I mean, nothing unsustainable, and I think there's a little bit of headroom for more. His IPP is one area where I have noticed that it's 56%, which is low for a player like this, in my opinion. I think his bigger seasons when he was really popping offensively, it was closer to 75% at 5-on-5, and it topped out at 80%, which is kind of where I think this player should actually be. So I think that's maybe due to a couple things, some line juggling there. That never helps. And also Barzal's been playing a lot of center this year, and I think that could have something to do with it. He's often like starting the play from the D zone and connecting the defense and the wingers, right? Distributing to others. I mean, the IPP, if he's a center, it might not necessarily come back up to the level it was at before. I believe it will, but I'm not confident. I can't just say it's going to jump back up to previous levels here. But I do think that his shots are going to come up a little bit. He's shooting a career worst 5.39 shots and goal per 60 at 5-on-5. I just think they need to get him more looks out there. But regardless to say, if nothing changes, I feel like Barzal we can still get there with Barzal with his 5-on-5 production. It's the power play in New York that's been pretty damn brutal. Currently 30th in the league in conversion rate, and Barzal only has 3 power play points despite a career high power play time on ice. That's wild stuff, right? Did get a goal here tonight, so kudos to you, my man. But yeah, like that's a rough look, right? But there is some good news, folks. Something I like to do when I'm looking at power plays, I like to dig in on the expected goals for per 60. So we've got the actual goals for, what their conversion looks like, and then the expected goals, what the actual environment looks like, and how many chances they're generating, right? I do that all the time just to see where some wiggle room is, right? And the good news is the Islanders, their expected goals for per 60 with the man advantage is 12th best in the league. 30th worst in conversion, 12th best in expected goals for. So they've just been really unlucky. That's a stark difference, right? It just needs to be recognized. They're generating a lot, but not getting the job done. I think, when you got a guy like Schaefer on the back end there, he's going to keep this power play humming, right? He's going to keep it from being truly awful, but clearly these guys need to finish, Barzal included, right? His individual performance on the power play, worst of his career by a lot. Again, before tonight, his IPP was 30% after not dipping below 66% on the power play in every single season besides his rookie year. On ice shooting percentage with the man advantage, laughably low, 9%, when it should be up in the 12 to 15% range, right? So his line mates aren't converting either. All this to say, I expect a better performance from this group, even with Palmieri out. I think Maxim Shabanov brings a more dynamic element to the power play. But one of the problems that we have seen with this Islanders power play is overpassing, right? Lack of shots. I do think they're going to figure it out. So I'd be buying low on Barzal, even with the 3-point game here. I still don't think it's going to cost you that much. I think, it's been a slog this year for Matt Barzal. There was expectations of a point per game player, myself included, and he's just not there, right? He's pacing for 55 to 60 now. So there's a chance, but I think that window could close here soon, right? He just had a big game here. What if he can string a couple together? Then that door is going to be completely shut. So I'd be looking to get a hold of some Matt Barzal. This guy's an elite play driver, and you need him on your life, okay? So there you go. That's my sell job for Matt Barzal. Let's move on to the next player we want to talk about here. Clayton Keller. Yep, I've talked about him on over-under before. I want to talk about Clayton Keller again. Definitely been a down season for him. And, we now know that his dad passed away, and who knows how that whole situation was affecting him. I can't imagine, honestly, like going to try and play at such a high level, right? When this kind of stuff is going on in the background. So I just think that's a testament to the mental fortitude and the talent of Clayton Keller. And I just want to say that first and foremost. Yeah, there's much bigger things than fantasy hockey here. But he's still doing stuff, right? He's on a 73-point pace out there. That's pretty good. Like, I don't know what the personal situation was and how long it's been going on. So yeah, for him to be cooking at that rate, it's really impressive. So yeah, in terms of buy lows, he's not a traditional one, right? He's got 25 points in 28 games. He just had a big 3-point game in the last game here, which is a blowout against the Ducks. But I mean, he's on a 73-point pace, like I said, but that's far from the 90 points that he accrued last season. He's had a decent stretch over the past 5 games, 1 goal, 4 assists, just under 20 minutes average time on ice. But yeah, 3 of those points came in the last game. Before that, he only had 5 in the previous 10. So I truly believe Clayton Keller to be a 90-point player, even this season. And there are lots of things under the hood that point him in that direction. So let's take a look at those. First off, in terms of individual shot and chance generation, he's 34th in shots to goal per 60 and 4th overall in individual scoring chances for per 60. That's according to Natural Stat Trick, and that's on the season. It's a nice place to be, right? And it definitely indicates an elite offensive option for fantasy. So he's doing all the right things there, but it's his expected goals over the past 2 weeks that really gets me excited about Keller and where he's headed. He's tops in the entire league over that time in expected goals per 60, according to Mark's expected goals model, yet he only has 2 goals, right? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. That's going to normalize, right? 2 weeks is a good section of time to be number 1 in the entire league in expected goals. So I would bet anything that the goals are going to start coming here, right? In the last game, Utah had Keller playing with Nick Schmaltz and JJ Peterka, right? And we had Barrett Hayton as a surprise healthy scratch, and that line popped the hell off. It was excellent. Keller had 3 points. John Jason Peterka had 2 goals, 2 assists. Really nice stuff. Nice little breakout game for him. Nick Schmaltz got off the schneid as well. He had 2 assists. And that line just dominated the Ducks and outchanced them 11-4 at 5-on-5. They had an 84% expected goals for percentage. That's pretty good for the layperson. Okay, that's good. Very good. They were dominating, tilting the ice out there against a dangerous Ducks team. So we'd love to see that. I think it will be interesting to see what happens next game if Hayton does make it back into the lineup. Does Hayton go right back to line 1 with Keller and Schmaltz, or maybe they drop him down to the third line? Who knows? I think with that massive game and a 4-point game from Peterka, I think he's going to get another shot, at least at the beginning of the game with Schmaltz and Keller. Schmaltz will be taking the center spot there. Either way, I mean, I dug in on some metrics for Clayton Keller's line when it was with Barrett Hayton, and they were performing really well under the hood. According to Money Puck, as a line, they were 14th in the league in expected goals for. 14th. So again, generating a ton at 5-on-5, just not delivering, right? Not delivering the goods. Put the biscuit in the basket, boys. All right. Generating a lot, not converting. Same old story for buy low players. But this is the type of info that we need to make those decisions in these fantasy hockey streets, right? This line is due. And I think, whether it's Peterka or Hayton, they're still generating a ton with Peterka there. They obviously got the biz last game. So I'm hoping we get another look at that. Next thing we have to look at, again, similar to Matt Barzal, Clayton Keller's work on the power play. Stinky. All right. It's a lack of power play in Utah, which has been surprisingly bad considering they were, kind of a wagon last year, right? This year, Utah is 27th worst to be exact in conversion. And unfortunately, the underlying metrics are not promising with the Mammoths power play like they were with the Islanders. Utah's expected goals for per 60 is ranked 23rd, which is a tough look considering all that talent that they have on that team. So I'm not going to sit here and say that's just going to bounce back because of the talent, but I will remind you that this exact power play was 6th best last season in goals for per 60. So they really got the biz last year. I don't know what's changed here. The personnel, it looks the same besides the addition of Peterka, which, he's been mostly on power play too. So I don't get it there. I do believe that they're going to be better than 23rd, but maybe not 6th best here this season. Let's just find a happy medium, right? Let's get them above the kind of halfway point there in the upper half of the league. They have the talent to be a lot higher, right? Keller in particular. He's last year, he was a stellar power play performer. He had 37 points. That was good for 4th best in the league, tied with Lucas Raymond. So and now that part of his game is sort of fallen off a cliff. He's only has 8 power play points. They're all assists, right? He hasn't scored a goal. Clayton Keller hasn't scored a goal with the power play, folks. That doesn't make any sense, right? That's going to change. And I think quickly, I would imagine. So to me, Keller is a player who I'm targeting big time, maybe more than any other player on this list. I was able to get Clayton Keller in one of my leagues. I did a little pick swap there. Just knowing what Keller's been doing under the hood, the offensive environment there in Utah, I really want a piece of this guy. He's an extreme buy low to me. And I think it's going to be last call for Clayton Keller because of obviously this last big game. And I think he's going to get points in bunches. And I think that's going to be happening pretty damn quick. So sometimes teams need a big game like that to get the monkey off their back, right? Like the one they had against the Ducks. So yeah, I think they're hopefully feeling a little bit lighter. It's going to take Keller, obviously, a long time to feel that lightness considering his personal situation. But playing winning hockey, hanging with the boys could help. So I love this player. I love Keller, hoping the best for him. And I truly believe he is going to return 3rd round value and be a guy you didn't regret drafting in your fantasy hockey drafts. All right. So buy low, get this stallion on your squad. Oh, yeah. Let's talk about the next player here. The Buffalo Sabres, Rasmus Dahlin. Yeah, pretty standard buy low. I've seen other people calling him a buy low, and I agree. All right, but let me give you my take. To me, it's pretty simple, right? This is a simple one. Dahlin has had a rough season here, and you don't need to look much further than the hell that he and his family have had to endure with his fiance, dealing with heart surgery. Like it's crazy stuff. Going back to Sweden to support her. And it's just crazy to me that these guys can still play at this elite level when things like that are going on in their personal lives, right? Like I'd be a mess. I'd be hiding under a desk somewhere. So, shout out to him and others who are going through things and still soldiering on. This guy's an absolute beauty. So, again, want to say that, but excuse me, as far as what he's been able to do out on the ice, it hasn't been bad. It's just not up to the level that fantasy managers expected when drafting him in the late second, early third rounds, right? If he's on this buy low list, though, that sounds funny. That there's a positive spin, right? There's something going on that we're looking at that we're excited about. Let's look at what he's done this season. So on the year, Rasmus Dahlin, he's pacing for 58 points. Not too bad, right? That's decent, but only has 1 goal on the season. That is pretty shocking, actually. It's a far cry from the 17 goals he secured last season. And he's only shooting 1.6%, folks, after shooting 8.5%, 8.5, 7.3, 7.6 over the last 4 seasons. So he's ice cold in terms of his shooting. There's no question. But just because he is now doesn't mean that's going to continue the entire season, right? This is a double-digit goal man from the back end. He's just ice cold. The underlyings look great with Rasmus Dahlin. Last 5 games, yeah, he only has the 1 assist, but the metrics are popping off. 7th amongst defensemen in shots on goal per 60. 2nd overall in individual expected goals per 60. 1 goal on the year, folks. 1. All right. Do you think that's going to continue? Because if you do, I'm going to send Nate over to your house and hit you in the head with a tack hammer. All right. And he'll do it too. He's got spare time. Hey, but I don't want to do that. Okay. Just trust me when I say that's going to go up, right? It makes a lot of sense. More goals are coming. So, yeah, I mean, this is a great player. So on the year, the metrics are just as promising, right? 16th overall in shots and goal per 60 amongst D-men. 16th overall in individual expected goals per 60. That's really, really good and should equal a lot more goals or production than he's currently getting. If we dig in on the metrics for the Sabres, I mean, offensively, they've been quite good, right? Especially at 5-on-5. They're 3rd overall in expected goals for per 60 and 11th in actual goals scored per 60. So that's a great place to be. Now you get absolute unit Josh Norris returning to the fold, right? So in theory, the offense just got a shot in the arm. I think the environment at 5-on-5 is really good. Power play for sure can be better, and that's been an issue in Buffalo for a while. Dahlin isn't a huge power play points guy, unfortunately, but he's on pace to sort of hit previous season's numbers. Again, we got Josh Norris back in here. He's an excellent power play performer, so there's a touch of headroom just for the team in general with him back in the fold. One thing I will say about Dahlin, something that's been mildly concerning, is the drop-off in his peripheral stats, right? Hits and blocks in particular are down this season compared to career averages, but I don't know. Who knows what's been going on in this man's head on a night-to-night basis, right? I expect as Dahlin's family situation gets a little healthier and more stable, he can sort of relax into the season a little more, right? Obviously, hockey's a distant second to what he's been dealing with. So I look at his production with all this going on, and I'm incredibly impressed and hopeful that I think there's a lot more in the tank here. We know he has more to give, and I believe he will do that. So I'm throwing offers out there for this stallion ASAP, right? I think that right now is going to be the lowest value for Rasmus Dahlin on the season. And there's just so much that he brings to the table. We're talking 70-point upside. We're talking big-time periffs, shots, blocks, and hits, right? He Julian's, does it all. So when a guy like this is misvalued, we need to jump on that. So buy low on Rasmus Dahlin and do it now, okay? Before we get on to the last 2 players, I want to talk about the Apples and Ginos Patreon, okay? You got to do it. All right. It's a really good service that we're providing here. We've got different tiers. So head on over to patreon.com, search Apples and Ginos. Link is in the description. You can get in at the supporter tier, which is $2 Canadian a month. And what that'll get you is access to the waiting list for the APL, the Apples and Ginos Patron Fantasy Hockey League. We've had a couple teams drop out, and so we've been able to fill them with people on the waiting list. If you want to get ahead on maybe next year and potential tiering, right? You can get in there. We'd really appreciate that. But the next tier up is the Apples tier, which is $8 a month. And this is the one where you're getting the best bang for your buck, in my opinion. You get the APL eligibility, which we talked about, and then you get access to patron-only Discord channels where your questions will be answered by either Nate or myself any time of day. We get the biz in there, and it feels good. You also get access to a patron-only live show. Nate and I do one a month, so we just alternate back and forth. So Nate's doing one in December here. I'm not sure what the topic will be, but yeah, that'll be just the patrons and Nate chopping it up. So you also get access to the show notes, including weekly ad targets for our waiver wire shows. Plus, you get access to this beautiful Apples and Ginos player evaluation tool. I use this all the time when I'm picking up players on the waiver wire, when I'm valuing players and trying to pick players for shows like this, right? It's great. It's got a lot of different options. It's got things, you can compare two players. You can look at a bunch of players side by side. You've got team expected goals. You've got skaters 5-on-5 expected goals. Just a bunch of goodies that our team over here in Apples and Ginos have really done a good job. So yeah, for $8 a month, you get access to this thing. All right. And for $9 a month, Nate will come to your house and he'll scratch your back with an Apples and Ginos diamond encrusted back scratcher. So I just want to throw that out there as well. We have them for sale as well, but they cost $4,000 each. So I don't know. Nate has one. I have one. I mean, it's kind of good. I don't know. Does anyone get grossed out by back scratchers? My parents have back scratchers at their house. Like, I sit down on their chair when we're just visiting and I look over and I see my stepdad's back scratcher. And I'm just thinking about all the dead skin cells in there. You know what I mean? Like he's not washing it, right? I don't know. Where am I going with this? I'm sorry about that. All right. Let's talk about two more players. All right. I got to talk about my boy. All right. One of the best heads of hair in the biz. There's no question. Brock Boeser of the Vancouver Canucks. And I will preface this, calling any player on the Canucks a buy low is definitely a choice. Okay. But I'm going to do it anyway. Damn it. I don't care. This isn't necessarily a player that I'm looking to acquire in a trade, or even a player who I think has a big point total still in him this season. I think he is, however, a guy who looks good under the hood, and he isn't being valued that way. I think he's being undervalued. Canucks have been a barren wasteland for offense, right? I'm trying to coin that. Nate had the Greg Cronin hellscape for Anaheim last year, right? I'm calling the Canucks a barren wasteland where offense goes to die, all right? And I'm a fan. That's what they've reduced me to. All right. They're dead last in the league after tonight's games. What are we doing here? I love hockey. The dead last, my God. But it's not Brock's fault. Okay. Yeah. Let's talk about the positives, right? I'm digressing down a rabbit hole here. Yeah. So the things I like about Brock Boeser on the season, pacing for 52 points, 9 goals, 7 assists in 25 games. Okay. It's not great. I still think Boeser needs to be a back-end option on your rosters. And let me tell you why, right? Numbers are not great on the season as expected, right? For Boeser, he's 100th overall in shots and goal per 60, 124th in individual expected goals per 60. Ew. Okay. On the surface, that looks pretty bad, and it is to a degree, but something that these metrics don't capture is the on-ice expected goals per 60, which is actually third best in the entire league over the past 2 weeks. That's something I mentioned with Matt Barzal, and I'm mentioning it here with Brock Boeser. It's something I like to look at in terms of how much offense is being generated when a player is out on the ice. And over the last 2 weeks, the expected goals per 60 when Boeser is out there, not including his own, he's third best in the entire league. Brock Boeser, folks. So, yeah, I think he's been playing all over the place, different line mates all the time. That's not helping things. His most recent line here has been with Kiefer Sherwood and David Kampf, right? And, gone are the days where Boeser just has to kind of get into position, right? JT Miller would find him with a seeing eye pass, or the Canucks would pressure in the zone, and he'd just be around the net to bat a rebound in, right? I think Boeser is really having to work for his chances and goals this year under Adam Foote with these rotating line mates, and the Canucks are getting rotated. But to me, the thing that, really gets me kind of feeling good about Boeser and his season is that with these kind of on-ice expected goals numbers, it says to me that Boeser is a big factor in driving offense when he's out there, no matter who he's with, right? He's been with multiple line mates throughout the year. There's no one line that he's been sticking with, but his on-ice expected goals numbers are third best in the league over the past 2 weeks. Like, I don't know. My knock on Boeser in the past is that he's been somewhat of a passenger, right? Where he's got a guy like Miller driving play or Pettersson driving a play or Quinn Hughes, right? But these recent on-ice numbers suggest to me that, he's kind of doing it on his own. And yeah, it's a 2-week sample size, so we need to recognize that. But I've watched him play a lot this season. His shots on goal per 60 are up. His individual scoring chances are actually up as well. IPP and shooting percentage are low, but nothing crazy. Like, I don't expect a massive uptick in production, like I mentioned early on, but I just thought it was worth mentioning that Boeser has shown an ability to elevate his play this year in terms of play driving. And we need to take notice of that, right? Like the other players on this list, power play points for Boeser have been sagging. He has just 1 goal and 4 assists with the man advantage. And he's actually been getting the full power play 1 treatment out there, which is nice. And, I got to shout out the Canucks on this. The power play has been really one of the only bright spots for this team this year. They're currently cooking at the 11th best conversion rate. And under the hood, they're even better, right? Their expected goals per 60 with the man advantage, 4th best in the league, right? Behind Dallas, Edmonton, and the Rangers. So the Canucks, folks, we're top 5 in something over here, and that feels good. Clearly, that's a product of, having a guy like Quinn Hughes on the back end setting things up. I think you look at who actually has been getting production here on the power play. It's Pettersson, right? He's been getting looks. Jake DeBrusk has been the real benefactor of this power play success and the environment here. He already has 7 power play goals on the year. I honestly think that's just variance, right? I think DeBrusk and Boeser often switch between net front and bumper position. And I think Boeser's going to get his soon, right? He's a guy that should flirt with 20 power play points every single season. This season included, right? Canucks 11th best, like I said, in terms of conversion. So that's one area where they are doing something. He's got a wicked release. We know this. He's got a nose for the net. So all this to say, I think Boeser should be rostered. Maybe he's a guy you get like thrown in as a trade piece coming back to you as like a supplementary piece, or he might even be on your waivers right now. Brock Boeser. So I just think, I'm not saying he's a must add, like you have to go and add him now. It's always got to make sense for your team. But I think that even in this offensive environment, Boeser is rising to the challenge. And I see him more as a 30 goal, 30 assist guy, as opposed to this 52 point pace he's currently on. And he also gets lots of access to one of the best defensemen in the game in Quinn Hughes. And that's something a lot of other players don't get. So he's going to continue to get the puck in good positions. I think positive regression is coming, especially on the power play. Book it, Brock. Help us out. All right. Please give us something to hang on to, for love of Pete. Last player I want to talk about, Brandt Clarke of the LA Kings. This is another one here that isn't exactly a traditional buy low because first off, he was never high, right? Brandt Clarke's never achieved a level where we're like, oh, he's lower than what he's done. He's kind of doing what he always does. So buy low might not be the right word here for Brandt Clarke, but I think this is a guy that's probably on your waivers currently. So, and now we've got the return of Drew Doughty in the lineup, right? That happened before I prepared this, but I debated whether I wanted to keep him on this list, and I do. And I'm going to basically kind of sell you on Brandt Clarke here, even with power play 2 deployment. So yeah, let's dig in here. On the year, we're looking at similar point production as we've seen previously with Brandt Clarke. He's got 3 goals, 9 assists for 12 points in 27 games, 28 after tonight, didn't get a point. 36 point pace, right? Nothing to write home about, but there's been some positive developments for sure. He's been playing some inspired hockey at 5-on-5, and underlying metrics support that. His IPP at 5-on-5 and his time on ice, both going up, right? Time on ice jumped almost 2 minutes. IPP skyrocketed from 38% at 5-on-5 last season to 61% so far this season. And yeah, that is high for sure and should regress, but we're 26 games in. So I think that, it's going to regress, but I don't think it's going to come back down to 38%, right? So he's in on a lot of goals, like 61% for defensemen is really, really high. So that's going to go down. But I just think that we've seen more than enough to see what kind of play driving talent we're dealing with here in Brandt Clarke. And yeah, with Drew Doughty out, Clarke seemed like the obvious choice to take power play 1 there in LA, but Jim Hiller seems fairly committed to this 5-forward set up until recently, right? And it's just really frustrating for fantasy, especially because the Kings have such a trash power play. These guys are 29th in conversion before tonight. Not much better at 24th in expected goals for with the man advantage. So why Hiller hasn't inserted an offensive dynamo like Clarke on the back end, it defies science. Okay, he's spitting in the face of science. Jim Hiller, what are you doing? All right, but that's fine. In the game tonight here, it was Doughty coming back from injury, jumping right back onto power play 1 as the quarterback. So yeah, Clarke went back to power play 2. That's fine too. Okay, at least we know what to expect. We know what he does under that circumstance, right? I do want to shout out Clarke's ability with the man advantage, though, and the progression that we've seen from last year to this one. Shots to goal per 60 with the man advantage went from 9 to 14 this year. So he's shooting a bunch more. Shot attempts went from 16 to 21 per 60, right? So he's chucking pucks way more. He's a bigger part of that power play when he's out there. He's getting a bit more time as well, albeit not much. And he did see some power play one time with Drew Doughty out. So at least it's an option here in LA. At least Jim Hiller's thinking about it, right? It's on the back burner. And I think too, like, if the Kings keep pooping in the sheets with the man advantage, like, Hiller is going to have no choice but to experiment and put Clarke out there with the big boys. And I think if he can get any consistent time on power play 1, we're looking at a 50 to 55 point defenseman, in my opinion. Right now, as it is, his on-ice shooting percentage on the power play is an abysmal 4.7%. Damn, right? That's horrific. It was 12.4% last season with basically the same players, right? So this guy's out there with spare parts, and it's not cool. These guys are not converting, right? And what's he supposed to do? He's at the blue line. So anyways, we can't rely on power play to kind of boost Brandt Clarke up this year. But I do want you to know that this is a player you need to be watching closely. And I think that he's doing enough to warrant a roster spot currently, right? Maybe as a 4th or 5th defenseman option, depending on the size of your league. But in this game here tonight, ace is up, right? Positive stuff. He had over 3 minutes on the power play, albeit with the second unit, and he actually led the entire team in time on ice. Brandt Clarke, oh my gosh, has that even happened before? I have to dig in on that. And this was only with 20 minutes and 12 seconds, but he led the entire team. And in that time, 1 shot on goal, 5 shot attempts, 4 scoring chances for to go with 4 blocks. That'll play, right? That's likely better production than you're getting from your 4th and 5th defenseman currently. So if it is, and this guy's available, now's the time, right? I feel like Clarke's getting some notoriety, right? I'm seeing a lot more, even just on Twitter, about Brandt Clarke and his abilities and what he's doing out there from a lot of the beat writers. And I think the Kings need a spark, and I think Clarke is that guy. So one thing about Clarke I didn't mention too, he's due for some goal scoring. I really believe that. Over the past 2 weeks, Brandt Clarke is 8th in the league amongst defensemen in expected goals per 60. So with a little bit of puck luck, we could be looking at double-digit goals from Brandt Clarke as soon as this season, right? So get him on your watch list or add him as a premium streamer who has a good chance of potentially sticking on your roster, right? But he is going to need some help from head coach and potentially some injuries to really hit for fantasy this season. He's more of a stash at this point, but I'm very interested. I missed out in all the leagues I'm in, and these are some high-level leagues. He's gone, right? There's no way to get Brandt Clarke, but if he's out there in yours, you got to look at it. You got to think about it, right? He might be better than the worst defenseman on your team. So that's where I'm at there. All right. But that's it, folks. I wanted to just get this quick one out to you. I'm going to be doing the waiver show solo tomorrow. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm getting a little bit sick here. So yeah, probably lots of snorting and grunting and everything, but I'll get some beers in me. That should put out that fire. Am I right? Total buffoon right here. Okay. But that's it, folks. Thank you so much for joining me here. And again, like I said early on, we appreciate you. We appreciate your patronage. We appreciate you listening to us, making us a part of your day. I love that. I love that this community allows me to do that. So appreciate you. That's all we've got for this episode, right? Hopefully it brought you a little bit of value and helped you get just a little bit better at fantasy hockey. Today, all the advanced stats you heard today came from Natural Stat Trick, terrific free resource. AdvancedHockeyStats.com, terrific paid resource. MoneyPuck.com, that's free as well. And our very own Mark Barber, 18 Skaters, who has his own separate Patreon. So check that out as well. Many thanks to Matt Creamer, my brother, for supplying the music for the podcast. That's it, folks. Celebrate your day. Bye for now.